Hello everyone, welcome to Easy Dharma for Difficult Times. Thanks for joining. Let me just refresh my computer so I can see who joins and when they do. And if anybody has any comments so they can come up on screen. Okay. So for those of you who have just joined, Easy Dharma for Difficult Times is an evening session done either by myself or by Pastor David, in which we'll be sharing some stories, sharing some Dharma with you all. And if you haven't seen the sessions before, we've been doing it for a while already. So we take turns to do the session. So one night it's myself, one night it's Pastor David, and you can join us every night apart from Thursday night, and it starts at 9 p.m. every night. Okay? Hi Yinping, nice of you to join. You're always here. Thank you very much. Okay, so as many of you already know, what I've been sharing over the past couple of sessions was actually the Four Noble Truths. And the last session that I did was an extension of that, which was on the karma chart that was done by Tsamrinpoche, which was designed by Tsamrinpoche to actually show us how to go about living our lives remembering karma, remembering the law of cause and effect. But it's more than that. It was how to go about living our lives so that we can improve it for the better and actually strive on our spiritual journey. So we've got some people joining us. Hi Kin Ho and Jacinta, Mr. Lum, hello. Pastor David has joined as well, hello. Martin's online as well. So if you've just joined, I was just going over a quick recap of what I've been doing so far, which is the Four Noble Truths, which I'm not going to talk about because I've talked about it for 4 sessions already. I'm sure you're all quite tired of hearing me talk about it. But I just wanted to recap what I was sharing the last session, which was about the karma chart that was designed by His Eminence Tsamrinpoche. And basically this chart actually shows us the 3 ways in we usually generate karma, which is either positive karma, which was depicted in white, negative karma, which was depicted in black, and also neutral karma, which was depicted in a beigeish orange color on the chart. So the chart actually takes you through how your motivation is quite important when in any action that you actually take during life. Now, I'm not going to get too much into that today, and I know what I usually do is I usually have a very in-depth recap of my previous session, but today I want to do something a little bit different. I'm just going to go straight into the topic. But before I do that, I want to actually explain about today's topic. So today's topic is going to actually be about something that a lot of people are always asking about, which is spirits, or the spirit realm, or the hungry ghost realm. And the reason I wanted to talk to you today about this topic is because when you look at the karma chart, the link to the karma chart, if you don't already have a copy, is actually on the comments section of my previous session. And if you open up the chart, you can actually see that on the bottom left-hand corner, there is a wheel. And inside that wheel, it's divided into 6 segments. And each segment represents a realm of existence. Okay? Now, within Buddhism, we actually say that there are 6 realms of existence, or 6 realms that we can take rebirth in. And when we are at the mercy of our karma and don't do anything to overcome our karma, we don't do anything to change our karma, we don't aspire for anything higher spiritually speaking, what happens is we get stuck in a cycle of rebirth in those realms again and again and again. So at the moment, we're actually lucky enough to be be born as a human in the human realm, and as such, we enjoy everything that we're used to. We enjoy being able to have a physical body, to interact with other people's physically, verbally, and also to enjoy, in inverting commas, the pleasures of having a physical body. And obviously that actually does come with both positive aspects and it comes with negative aspects as well. And if we don't use our body if we don't make use of what we have now, then we're gonna basically end up going back into that cycle of rebirth again and again and again. So one of the realms that we basically take rebirth in is known as the hungry ghost realm. Now, I'm sure a lot of us who are Buddhist already, and maybe if you're not even Buddhist, but you know a little bit about Buddhism, you would have heard of this realm called the hungry ghost realm. And today I'm going to be explaining more about what the term hungry ghost actually means. Okay, but before I get into that, I actually wanted to share a little bit about my own background, about my own story, because it is quite linked to this particular topic. And I know that JP has been sharing all these paranormal stories on Thursday evenings at 10 p.m. on the 10 Paranormal Facebook page. So JP has quite a few interesting stories to tell about all these paranormal occurrences, and a couple of us do actually here in Kechara, and was actually something a bit paranormal that led me, well, extremely paranormal, that actually led me to Kechara in the first place. So when I was younger, I was actually engaged in practices that you could term as magic. And as part of that, we actually actively sought out non-physical entities such as spirits, and we actually communicated with them. We basically asked them for help with different things, both positive and negative. So basically we made a connection with these beings and then would ask them to do certain things for us. Now that could be either something like harming somebody, or it could be something like healing somebody or helping somebody heal. But basically over time, what I realized was that these connections were quite draining. They were affecting me physically, because after building these connections with these beings, I could literally hear them, I could literally see them, and it got to the point where most probably if I would have gone to a psychologist or a psychotherapist, they would have probably given me medication or something, because there was a lot of voices in my head at that particular time. And the thing is that it got to a certain extent where these voices just didn't stop. And these spirits were constantly just talking to me and talking to me and talking to me. Then I realized that what I'd been doing, it wasn't bad per se, but it was something that wasn't healthy for me. Okay? Because just the level of noise, the level of voices, the level of beings asking me to do things for them or things like that got to a point where I basically couldn't handle it. And this was actually around the time when I was at university. It got to this point. So I was actually practicing before university and during university, but when I was in university, I kind of knew that something was a bit wrong, and I tried to stop it. So in the previous practices, we actually did have ways of shutting yourself down, as it were, so closing yourself off, so that you weren't so affected by these beings. But it got to a point where even those things that we were doing, or that I was doing, wasn't really having an effect. So basically, I was at wit's end and I really didn't know what to do. And it was having a huge mental toll on me. But it was around that time where I just happened to be on YouTube, and a video popped up on the sidebar, the recommendations on the sidebar. And it was a video on mantras that His Eminence Sen Rinpoche had posted up. So I clicked on the link and I watched it for about 5 minutes. And then I thought, okay, here is a spiritual teacher who's actually teaching in quite a modern way. I like the way he's teaching. I wasn't really interested in what he was saying at that point. So basically I just saved the link and I went around doing my daily routine. A couple of days later, I realized that I had bookmarked the link. So I went back to it and I watched a bit more of it. And then I was hooked about the way that Rinpoche was explaining all of these things, because he was talking about mantras. Now, myself coming from a Hindu background, and having studied Hinduism from a young age, actually a lot of what Rinpoche was saying about mantras actually reminded me a lot of what I'd learned growing up. So it was quite easy for me to understand and it was quite easy for me to comprehend. So then a couple more days passed and I didn't really think anything of it, but I kept remembering that teaching by Rinpoche. So I went back to the YouTube channel and started watching more of Rinpoche's teachings about everything. Okay, now if you go on Rinpoche's YouTube channel, you will see that Rinpoche has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos, hundreds of teaching in which it cover literally every topic you could think about. So I basically became hooked on these teachings by Rinpoche, and then so when I went onto the blog, which is senrinpoche.com, I came across an article that mentioned that the practice of Lama Tsongkhapa and Satrap help with spirit disturbances and black magic cases of spirit disturbances. So I thought I would give it a try. So what I did was I set up a very, very small altar to Tsongkhapa and to Satrap, and I started practicing the Guru Yoga and Satrap's mantra. Now at that point in time, I had finished university, but because of all the voices that I heard in my head and all these spirits and everybody that was talking to me, it affected me to mentally so much that I couldn't actually find a job. And even when I had an interview and I went to the interview and I tried to get that job, something always kind of blocked me from getting that job. So at the time, I didn't have a job, so I didn't have any money. So when you're starting out in Dharma practice and you hear that you should set up an altar and you should make water offerings and you should make other sorts of offerings and you should have a Buddha image, it was something that I didn't think I could actually do because I just didn't have any money to spend on setting up an altar. And at that point, I had to actually move back in with my parents because obviously I didn't have a job. I couldn't support myself in that sense. So I was back at home living with my parents and I set up an altar. Now, the good thing about Sen Rinpoche is everything he does or everything he did was geared towards allowing people to practice the Dharma. And one of the things that Rinpoche did, which a lot of practitioners out there have not done so far, is actually to provide things like prayers on his website, which anybody can access. But another thing is that Rinpoche also has a download section on the blog. And on that page, there is an entire subcategory of basically very, very high resolution Buddha images for people to download. Now, one of the reasons why, I've seen a couple of questions. So I'll finish my story quickly and then I'll go back to all the questions. So I managed to print off using my dad's printer, because I didn't own a printer at that point in time because I had no money, to print off an image of Shakyamuni, Tsongkhapa, and Satrap, and I set up an altar and I started doing the prayers and doing the mantras. So over time, things started improving a little bit, and I actually found that the voices were calm, and they weren't as bad. They were still there, but they weren't as bad. So I kept doing it. I thought, hang on a minute, here, Lama Tsongkhapa's practice and Satrap's practice has actually helped me more than the practices that I was doing previously that was supposed to close me off from this thing, because these practices belonged to that magical tradition that I was practicing at that point. But Lama Tsongkhapa's practice and Satrap's practice was actually helping a lot more. So I thought, hang on, there's something here. There's something more powerful, more protective when you invoke upon Lama Tsongkhapa and Satrap. And that's when I started reading a lot more of the blog. And at that point, I was put in touch. I emailed Kechara, and the first person that I talked to was actually Pastor Singh Piao. Pastor Singh Piao replied to an email that I'd sent in, and then Ben Kui also had replied to an email that I'd sent in, and they had both put me in contact with one of Rinpoche's older students in the UK. Hello, Keng Nam and Lily, if you're watching. Hello. Okay, and basically I went to meet them, and every now and then, like every month or so, we would get together at Keng Nam's house, and we would engage in Satrap's prayer to Satrap, as well as talk about the Dharma and enjoy Lily's fantastic cooking, because she's a very, very good cook. Okay, enough of that. And then, so Keng Nam kind of suggested that I go to Malaysia to see what Kechara is all about. So at that point, I had got a job, and actually I was working as a cleaner in a hotel company. Okay, because I just couldn't get a job, I took the first thing that came along that I could get, which was working as a cleaner. And I was still practicing Tsongkhapa and Satrap. And then over time, what happened was I kind of, the people who owned the company kind of realized that I could do more than just clean rooms, because I did have an education, I did have a degree. So I kind of got higher and higher jobs in that particular company. So first I was made the manager of the particular hotel I was working at, and then of an area in South London where we have a couple of hotels and service departments. And then I went up to become the financial administrator of that company. It was at that point that I actually had some time off work, and I had enough money to go somewhere different. So I decided to come to Malaysia. And when I came to Malaysia, I basically got in touch with Kechara. And at that point, Kechara Forest Retreat wasn't completed yet. So I stayed mainly in the city and was helping out, and came to volunteer basically for about 10 days. And as part of that volunteering, I was transcribing some of Rinpoche's video teachings as well, working with Pastor Adeline. And at that time, Paul Yap was the head of Kechara House. And it was just basically going around all the different departments and volunteering for a day or so at the different departments. And on the last day, just before I was just about to go to sleep, just after dinner, I got the news that Tsen Rinpoche wanted to see me. So I got ready, and I took my offerings, because I had some offerings to offer to Rinpoche that I didn't actually know if I would be able to see Rinpoche or not. So I was taken to Ladrang. And at that point, Rinpoche was actually quite ill. So everybody was a bit surprised to hear that Rinpoche actually wanted to see me, because, nobody knew who I was. I was just kind of turned up at Kechara's front door going, "Hi, let me in, I want to know more." So basically, I had the good fortune of having a very, very quick audience with Rinpoche. And during that audience, I kind of started explaining to Rinpoche about my particular situation. And then Rinpoche basically told me to keep quiet. So I thought, okay, this is a bit weird. So I kept quiet. And then during that audience, it was quite amazing because Rinpoche actually started telling me what my problem was, especially related to these spirits and everything. And he started telling me what I had been going through in quite a bit of detail, which was, something a bit is extremely extraordinary. And at that particular point in time, there was actually one spirit who was still following me around. And this spirit was not happy that I was talking to Rinpoche. And I remember at one point, this spirit was near me. He wasn't doing anything. He was just shouting a lot at me because he didn't want me to speak to Rinpoche. And at one point, Rinpoche actually turned around. During the audience, this spirit said one thing to me. And Rinpoche actually paused for about a second or two and then repeated what this spirit was actually telling me. So at that point in time, I was like, whoa, okay, Rinpoche is extremely clairvoyant. One, he's been telling me everything that has been happening to me. But at that particular point in time, verbatim, Rinpoche told me what this spirit was literally telling me at that point in time. So I thought, okay, this is something a bit weird. But then Rinpoche said, don't worry, because the spirit can't actually do anything physically, because at that point, I was in Rinpoche's Ladrang, I was in front of Rinpoche, and there's no way that the spirit at that point in time could physically harm me. So it was after that Rinpoche gave me, during that audience, that Rinpoche did a divination, and it said that the best thing for me to do is for myself to practice Singdongma. Now, Singdongma is a very powerful practice. A short prayer and there's mantra recitation. And then Rinpoche just said, just go back to the UK, just keep practicing this every day and you will see everything literally everything get better. So then I went back to the UK and I went back to my job, and basically I started reciting the prayers and mantra to Singdongma. And sure enough, things started to improve greatly, to the point where even though I could feel the spirit was kind of moving further and further and further away from me, because at that point in time, this particular spirit I could see very clearly right in front of me, standing literally right here, and he would just talk at me constantly, clear as day, and he would just talk at me. So this was basically the last one that I was trying to cut off from. And with Singdongma's practice, he physically moved further and further and further and further away from me. And also I could hear him less and less and less and less. And coincidentally, it was during that same literally half an hour audience that I had with Rinpoche that Rinpoche said to me, it'd be good if I come back to Malaysia to volunteer, maybe once a year for like a week or two. But this experience with Rinpoche during the audience, and also the benefit that I got from doing Singdongma's practice, had such an effect on my mind that I thought, okay, 4 months after I came back to the UK, 4 months later, I had some more time off. And so then I decided, okay, I want to go back to Malaysia and volunteer for a while. So I told my boss, right, I'm taking 2 months off. I'm just going to go to Malaysia and volunteer in Kechara. So then 4 months after my initial visit, I came to Malaysia, and long story short, I didn't go back to live in the UK. I stayed. So my 2 months of volunteering has now become 6-7 years of being in Kechara. Right? So that's my story in short, which has taken 25 minutes of this session. Okay, all right. Now I'm going to go back over to see who has joined so far. Hey, hello, Pastor Hani. Chung is online. Hello, Saifong. Yiling is here. Yusang is also here. Very nice to see you all. JC is also here. Ramesh is also online. Hello, Benkui and Cynthia, Karen, and Celeste is here as well. Now, I saw a question. Let me see. Chung. Okay, question by Chung. What language were the beings using? It's a very good question. Now, for me, when they were talking to me, they were using 3 languages. One was English, one was Gujarati, which is my native language, the language of my community, and also Hindi. Okay, so this is a very good question. So I asked Rinpoche once, a couple of years ago, why is it that these beings were talking to me in these 3 languages? And Rinpoche said it's quite simple. Because spirits aren't bound by a physical body and they can think and travel and move at the speed of thought. And the way that kind of works is that when they want to communicate with you, if they are powerful spirits, they can actually communicate with you in whatever language that you understand. So I actually understand all 3 languages. So he said that different spirits would use different languages to speak to me when I was open to them speaking with me. Now, it's a bit strange because most of them would only use one language. So like one spirit would use English, one spirit would use Gujarati, or the other spirit would use Hindi. But there was a couple that kind of switched languages as well. Okay, so so within the spirit realm, which is actually the topic of my session today, they can actually use different methods of communication. All right, now, so that is my particular story, and I've also, before that, if you've just joined, I kind of did a very, very quick, brief recap over the karma chart that I was discussing in the last session, and also the 6 realms of existence. Now, within the 6 realms of existence, one of those is known as the hungry ghost realm. Okay? Now, I want to talk a little bit about the mechanism in which, according to the law of karma, one takes rebirth in one of these realms. Okay. Now, basically, the mechanism, the way it works is, very sorry to talk about this, but at the time of our passing, depending on our very last thought before the death process occurs, or the later stages of the death process occurs, depending on our very last thought, that thought will actually open up a particular karma, whether it's positive or it's negative. And this karma is usually from a previous life. Okay? So our very last thought opens up a particular karma. And this karma is what is known as the throwing karma. Okay? So after you die, you actually take rebirth in what's known as the Bardo realm. And maybe this is something that I can discuss in another session. And after you leave the Bardo realm, you actually take rebirth in one of the 6 realms of existence. Now that thought that you have opens up the karma that leads you to take rebirth in one of the 6 realms. Now, each realm is actually marked by, or has a pervading tendency or pervading delusion, okay, that you can call it a delusion. So for example, if you die and during the moment of your death, a particular thought comes into your mind of attachment, okay, a particularly strong attachment that you have, this will actually lead you to take rebirth, most probably within the hungry ghost realm. Okay, so it is, whether it's attachment to food, whether it's attachment to branded items or cars or even family, attachment to something that you always wanted to do in life that you never got to do, attachment to any of these things. If this is your very last thought before you die, it opens up the throwing karma for you to be reborn in the spirit, in the spirit realm, also known as the hungry ghost realm. Now, one question that comes up during when you're talking to people about this is, okay, no matter what my last thought is, but my entire life I've been accumulating merit, I've been doing a lot of Dharma work, and I have been helping a lot of people, I've developed a compassionate mind and all of this. But what happens if at the point of death, my thought is still attached? Would I still be born in one of the 6 realms? I mean, as a hungry ghost. And in short, the answer is actually, sorry to say, yes. Okay? Now, the reason for this is because of the karmic potential, the power that karma has at the point of death. Now, no matter what you do in life, whether it's positive, negative, neutral, or meritorious, or virtuous, the very point of death and the very thought that you have at death actually determines where you will take rebirth next. So that is also one of the reasons why when we are practicing the Dharma, okay, you can do a couple of things to circumnavigate this kind of this law of karma at the point of death. One of the ways of doing it is to reach enlightenment in this very lifetime. Please try. Okay. The second thing is to actually make a connection or do some sort of power practice, make a connection with the Buddhas, the divine beings, so that at the moment of your death, instead of being thrown into cyclic rebirth again, you actually ascend and take rebirth in a Pure Land. And when you take rebirth there, you're no longer bound by the law of karma, in the sense of having to create karma. And while there, you can actually work towards purification of all your negative karma, generation of extreme amount of merits, and actually do all your meditations there to reach enlightenment. Another way that you can circumnavigate this is actually if you develop a connection with a Dharma protector. Okay? Now, Dharma protectors, especially enlightened Dharma protectors in this case, how they can help you is that at the point of your death, if you've generated merit, or you have people generating merit for you, such as doing pujas, doing offerings for you and dedicating the merits, especially once you've passed away, they're able to use this merit to help you take a better rebirth. Okay? Now, the hungry ghost realm. Now I'm going to talk about the hungry ghost realm. Now, traditionally speaking, okay, the hungry ghost realm, when you take rebirth in the hungry ghost realm, according to scripture, you take rebirth in a city called Kapila Nagara. All right. Now, this city is physically located thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of miles under the earth. Okay. And it is said that this city is completely made out of what is the word? Okay, how to describe it? Okay, imagine a volcano, right? And the volcano erupts. If you've ever seen like pictures or videos of volcanoes erupting, you've got the molten lava coming out. And then as it cools, the top of it kind of turns like a black silvery color, right? That is the color of this city, all right? Now, as soon as you take rebirth as a hungry ghost, you take rebirth in that city. Everything is made up of this black substance. All right? So you take rebirth there. But because you're in the spirit realm, you actually travel at the speed of thought. As soon as you take rebirth, the first thought you have, you will travel there. All right? So this explains why there are spirits all over the surface of the earth. Because even though they took rebirth in this particular city, they can be anywhere all over the earth because they travel at the speed of thought. All right. Now, I'm going to go into a traditional depiction of what they look like. All right. Hungry ghosts are said to have huge heads. All right. They have huge heads. But then they have really spindly necks. All right? So they have huge heads and very spindly necks. And because their necks are so spindly, one of the sufferings that they face is trying to keep their head up. Because the force of the head on their neck is so strong that all they want to do is kind of like, their neck just wants to crack under the force of such a heavy, huge head. So the neck is very thin, and then you get to the body. Now, hungry ghosts are said to have huge bodies, right? Huge stomachs. And then their legs are just as spindly as their necks. So I'm sure that a lot of you that have already been practicing Buddhism may have seen depictions of hungry ghosts already. They're kind of drawn big, huge heads, spindly neck, huge body, and spindly legs, twig-like legs, all right? Now, this is a typical depiction of what a hungry ghost looks like. And when you're in this kind of form, there are 6 things that you have to endure. Any spirit who takes rebirth, any being who takes rebirth in the hungry ghost realm will have to actually endure 6 different types of suffering. One is extreme heat, extreme cold, hunger, thirst, exhaustion, and fear. All right? These are the 6 sufferings that you have to go, that any spirit or hungry ghost will go to. All right? Here I'm using the word spirit and I'm using the word hungry ghost interchangeably because they're exactly the same. It's just that in Buddhism, we term it hungry ghost. Why? We term it hungry ghost because here you're actually talking about the major suffering that they go through. Now, in traditional depictions, it says that hungry ghosts are exactly that. They're hungry. What they're hungry for? They're hungry for food. All right? Now, for most spirits, it's said that their stomachs are so big that they're just constantly hungry, but they can't actually find any food, which is why they have to suffer from thirst and hunger and also extreme heat and extreme cold. All right? These 6 types of sufferings, they just literally can't have any food. Why? Because as a hungry ghost, you do not have the karma to receive something, to receive food. All right? To receive sustenance. So they're constantly searching for food. All right? However, some of those who are more fortunate within the spirit realm actually have the karma to actually come across food. All right? Now, what their food is not like our food. It's not like roti chana or nasi lemak or banh mi. All right? It's not as nice as that. All right? Spirits who have the karma to see food and to receive food, for us, it is actually things like blood. It is things like pus. It is things like, okay, imagine a piece of fruit and it's completely rotten. It like goes blue and moldy and then all the juice is starting to come out and, it's just rotting. That is what hungry ghosts see as food. Okay? All right? And they want to eat that. They see that as food and all they want to do is they eat it. Now, even, less than the percentage I've talked about, even within that group who are able to see food, a lesser number of ghosts or spirits are also able to actually partake of it. All right? They don't partake of the physical substance, they partake of the energy of that substance. So when they partake of it, what happens is their mouths are like, even though they've got such big heads, their mouths are said to be the size of a needle. all right? The point of a needle. So even to try and eat something, even be it energy, through a small mouth is very torturous, okay? So then they're actually able to eat it. But those spirits that are able to eat it, when they try to put it down their necks, right, it just won't go down. And the reason it won't go down is because these particular spirits have what are known, have knots in their neck. So their necks have actually been, they're born in such a way that their neck has 3 knots in their neck. So when they try to eat it or try to swallow anything, they can't because these knots are in the way for the food to reach their stomach. And this causes them even more pain, even more suffering, because they've finally found what they wanted. They're able to do it, but they can't get satisfaction from it because it just doesn't reach their stomachs. Now, again, even within that class of spirits, there is another very, very, very smaller class of spirits. These spirits actually manage to get that food down past those 3 knots in their necks and into their stomachs. Now, due to the sufferings in the spirit realm, when the spirits are able to actually get the food into their stomach, what happens is that food is automatically turned into molten metal. So when you heat metal up, it turns into a liquid form and it's extremely hot. It melts. It basically melts everything. So their stomachs basically melt from the inside out. If you've seen traditional depictions of hungry ghosts, you may have even seen some with fire coming out of their mouths. Okay? The hungry ghosts that you see with fire coming out of their mouths, it's not because they spit fire out like a Western dragon. You know, if you've seen the Western dragon movies, you'll see like them flying about and then all of a sudden they just shoot fire at their mouths. They're not like that. The fire coming out of the mouth of hungry ghosts is basically the fire of their insides burning because they have managed to find this food, but it is turned into molten metal inside their stomachs, and it's the fire that's coming out their mouths. This is a traditional depiction of what the sufferings are in the hungry ghost realm. Okay, now I've got some more questions. Mr. Lum asks, are hungry ghosts form or formless? Okay, good. It's a very good question. Usually when we're talking about Buddhism, we talk about things are known that are a category that are known as the 6 realms and a category that is known as the 3 realms. Okay? Now, these 6 realms of existence are actually part of these 3 realms. So the 3 realms are actually top to bottom, formless, form, and then desire. Okay? So these are what are known as the 3 realms of existence, formless, form, and desire. Now, the 6 realms of existence that we talk about is completely subsumed within the desire realm. Okay? Well, not subsumed, part of the desire realm. And then above that, you have the form realm, and above that is the formless realm. Now you're going to ask me, but you always talk about the 6 realms of existence. So how do I take rebirth in the form or the formless realms? Actually, the form and the formless realms are the highest levels of the heavenly realms that we talk about out of the 6 levels, the 6 realms of existence. So the majority of the 6 realms of existence are within the desire realm, but the top sections of the heavenly realms cross over into the form realm and again the formless realm. So a hungry ghost has actually taken rebirth in the desire realm, which means they have a form. It is just not a physical form like us, okay? It's more of an energetical form, all right? They do have a form, and their form is made out of energy, if you were, all right? And so I hope that's answered your question. Sharon's also got another question. Do all hungry ghosts look like what you have described? Very good question. Now, the way that they are depicted within the scriptures and then the way I've explained is basically a visual way of trying to explain to people the sufferings that you go through if you're born as a spirit or if you're born as a hungry ghost. But actually, because they have an energy body, basically they're not bound by a physical body, they can actually appear to you in multiple ways and multiple forms. All right. So for example, even though they might look like that originally when they take birth within the spirit realm, they can appear in many different forms. For example, I have seen spirits look like human beings. I have seen things look like shadows, look like dwarves, look like balls of energy, like that green ball that JP was talking about the other day, the one that had a face and looked at him. If you haven't seen it, go to see JP's session from Thursday and you'll know what I'm talking about. And they can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, but that's actually how they're appearing to you. All right, not necessarily what they actually look like. All right. So I hope that answers your question. Pastor Albert has just joined. Hello, Pastor Albert, and Frederick has just joined as well. So hello, nice of you to join. Okay, for those people who have just joined, wow, I've done 45 minutes already. Okay, for those of you who have just joined, there's one more question from Chung. Further up, further down?
Between Sharon and Mr. Lam's question.
Okay. All right, I'm going to refresh my page because I can't see Chung's question. So while that refreshes, all right. So hopefully I have gone through a bit about the spirit realm. All right. Okay. So, and I've talked about the kind of sufferings that they go through according to traditional scriptural sources about the heat, the cold, the hunger, the thirst, and the exhaustion and the fear. And this all comes about because they're attached to something. Now, attachment is actually something that I want to talk more about today. Now, because attachment is the thing that leads you to take rebirth within the sixth realm, within the spirit realm, sorry. But actually, even when you get into the spirit realm and maybe you're reborn as a spirit, attachment is also the biggest thing you have. Is your biggest illusion within that particular realm. Now, what does this have to do with being hungry? All right. When you are attached to food, you're going to be hungry for food. All right. Okay. So the traditional representation of spirits being hungry is because they're attached to food. They have such a strong attachment that they need food, that they have to get food, they have to get a drink, they have to get water. All they think about is getting that. But actually, this attachment actually covers a wide variety of attachments. It is not just food, which is why when explaining it, I call them hungry ghosts. But when I'm talking about them, usually I just call them spirits. All right? Because their attachment is just more than food. Their attachment can be anything. Their attachment can be a person. It can be a particular object. It can be a particular place or a particular location. For example, Rinpoche has said before that if you go to certain hotels or you go to certain places or a certain house and everybody says the house is haunted. All right. Why is that house haunted and the house next door isn't haunted? Why doesn't the spirit kind of, jump over the fence or walk through the fence into the next door neighbor's house and haunt that place as well? The reason being is usually because the person, when they were passing, the last thought they had was actually a thought about that house. All right, or something that happened in that house. So what they're attached to is that house. So when they take rebirth within the spirit realm, the first thought again that they have is about that house. So they come back to that house and that's where they haunt. That's where they live. That's where they try to fulfill their attachment. And their attachment is usually got something to do regarding that house or that building. So that they're in that house, and that's when people say that a particular house is haunted. Similarly speaking, when you have highways and you have a lot of accidents on highways, those particular accident spots become haunted. So you will hear that a particular stretch of road, we have a lot of them in Malaysia, is particularly haunted. It is because that at the moment of death, that person died such a horrific death that actually that ghost comes back and it is attached to that particular place because there is a kind of attachment to having died in that particular location, which is why that they'll come back and they'll haunt this particular location. Similarly speaking, people can be very attached to certain objects in life, such as a prized possession that they have. So if they do unfortunately take rebirth as a spirit, they'll come back and basically haunt that particular object. So anybody who has or owns that particular object will now be haunted. All right, let me see if that question by Chung has come up, and please bear with me, technical difficulties. My page is still loading.
Were there any spirits that communicated to you, someone you knew? That was his question. It's pretty short.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, I've got it now. Were there any spirits that communicated to you, someone you knew? I mean, I knew them because they talked a lot, but if you're talking about someone that I knew that had passed away, no. I have, as far as I can remember and recall off the top of my head, I have not encountered anybody that I knew from. Yeah, no. But you can get to know spirits. I don't suggest that you do, but it's something that I used to do. It's not something that I'd want to do anymore. Okay. Okay, got some more comments. Elsie says, "Thank you, Pastor, for the detailed explanation. My pleasure. I haven't finished yet. I want to do some more explaining." Okay, Mr. Lam asks, what happens when a dying person's last thought prior to last breath is on the physical pain of, say, cancer cell, and that person has that great hatred on cancer? Okay, here's where it gets a bit complicated, all right? Now, because the most predominant delusion here at the point of death is not actually attachment. Here it is actually hatred, all right? So, and the karmic kind of repercussion of opening up a hatred karma at the point of death will actually lead you to one of two realms. It will actually lead you either to an animal realm, but more probably it will actually lead to rebirth in the hell realms. Now, this is something I will touch on, these two realms, in subsequent live sessions with everyone. All right. Got more questions, a lot of questions today. Sharon Ong asks, if we get spirit encounters due to our karmic connection to it, is there a way for us to cut those karmic ties? And this actually links in with LC's comment. Hi, Pastor, why does the spirit attach to a person? All right. All right. Now, this is a very good question. Okay, I think I'm going to have to do a part 2 to this. Because this okay, all right. So actually for tonight, what I'll do is I'll answer Sharon's question and then Elsie's question, and then Yuseng has a question as well. I'll answer these, and then maybe not tomorrow night, but because tomorrow night is Pastor David, but the night after that, I will continue with this topic because there are some things that I actually wanted to share with all of you, which I didn't get any time because I've just been talking on for almost an hour already. Okay. Sharon asks, if we get spirit encounters due to our karmic connections, is there a way for us to cut the karmic ties? And this ties in with Elsie's comment, which is, why does spirit attach to a person? Very, very good question. Now, It's a bit of a complicated question. All right. Okay. Because we have been born countless times within samsara, we all have karmic connection to each other. The very fact that you're watching me on live streaming now means that I have a karmic connection with you. You have a karmic connection with me. All right. The very fact that I was born to my parents in this life is because I have a karmic connection with them in previous lives. The very fact that I have friends who I have now is due to karmic connection. Okay, friends I had in the past but I'm no longer friends with, same thing, we have a karmic connection. Also friends in the future, karmic connection. Colleagues, work colleagues, even people we walk down the street with, you know, we don't even know them, but you just walk down the same street at them at the same time, there is actually a karmic connection. Now this actually applies to ourselves and also beings born in the spirit realm. Okay, it just so happens that in this particular circumstance, say for example me, I'm born as a human, and maybe my brother from a previous life is born in the spirit realm. Because of the karmic connection we have from previous lifetimes, we actually have the ability to communicate with each other. We actually have the ability to get into fights with each other or to annoy each other or, you know, whatever. But it's just that the causes and the conditions for that karma are correct for some people and aren't correct for other people. All right. So, for example, in this life, because I engaged in those practices in earlier on in this life, I opened up that karmic potential to have this communication with these particular spirits. All right. Now, some people, for example, may just be walking down the street and there'll be a spirit go past them. They don't even know who, you know, but because that karmic connection is there and the causes and the karmic conditions are right in that specific moment, what happens is that spirit will attach to that person. And when that spirit is attached to that person, the spirit will go through kind of the same things as what I was going through. Spirit disturbances, they may hear them, they may see them, they may be affected by them mentally, physically, whatever. This is the actual reason why people can communicate with spirits, and also the reason why spirits can afflict somebody is because of karma. Now, usually speaking, it's a negative karma. If the spirit is afflicting you or attached to you, it's due to negative karma. So the question is, so that's kind of the answer to Elsie's question. But when Sharon's question is how to cut off that connection, how to cut that connection. And basically, because it is due to karma, that connection is due to karma, the answer is basically very simple. The answer is basically purify that karma. Now, there are many ways in which you can purify that karma. For me, how I purified that karma was actually through the practice of Singdongma and doing her mantras. Now, you see a fierce deity like Singdongma and you think, oh, you do her practice, you do her prayer, she's going to protect you, she's going to stop you, she's going to stop all these spirits from coming at you, and she's going to scare them away, she's going to chase them away. And you're right on a physical level of it, but when you get down to it, the actual mechanism in which she uses to purify that karma and keep them away is wrath. But her wrath is actually based on something that Buddhists all need to practice. And what is that? Compassion. All right. Now, I'm going to talk about how this works in my next session, and not today. All right. So please do join in for that session. I'm going to tell you how exactly this compassion works. All right. Okay. All right. Now, I have a lot of questions. All right. I think actually, all right, I'm very, very sorry. I'm going to take all of your questions from today and I'm going to use them to answer in my next session, which is going to be on the same topic. So do join in. What day is it today? Today is a Saturday, right? Today's a Saturday. Tomorrow at 9 p.m. is Pastor David, okay? So I'll be back again on Monday at 9 p.m. So remember to join me at 9 p.m., all right? Now, on Monday's session, I'm going to answer these additional questions that we've had here that I'm very, very sorry that I haven't been able to answer them today, but I will definitely answer them on Monday. And on Monday, I'm also going to share with you how this compassion is the key to cutting these karmic connections. I'm also going to talk about what you can do to create protection around you if you're worried about ever being afflicted by negative entities, especially the beings born in the spirit realm that you have a lot of negative karma with that may afflict you in this life. Okay, I'm going to talk about the protection that you can put in place as well. One other thing I'm going to be talking about, which is kind of something I'm also known for, is the uses of sang. Okay, now there are two uses of sang. One is as an actual offering, as an incense smoke offering to the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, and especially the Dharma protectors, which I won't go into too much on Monday, but I will talk about a little bit. But the other use of sang that I want to talk about on Monday is actually how to use sang to actually purify your environment and to basically rid your environment of negativities, including negative entities that you have a strong negative karmic connection with, just in case the causes and conditions open up for them to afflict you. And as well as talking about, as part of that, I'm going to explain two visualizations which, as far as I'm aware, have not been published on the blog yet. So to learn those two visualizations, to be able to sang for purification purposes, you will have to join me on Monday at 9 p.m. Okay? All right? To join in. So do join in for that because it's not on the blog. All right? All right? And I'll share those with you on Monday. All right. So thank you very much for joining. I've been talking nonstop for an hour already. So I hope you've learned something and some of your questions are answered. I will definitely answer the rest of the questions on Monday. Thank you very much for joining. Stay home, stay safe, and stay spiritual. Thank you.